Hey everyone, you've got Renee Michelle here, and we are going to get right into this podcast because it's an extra long special episode for you guys. This is with my good friend Charles Oliver. He is a sleep professor as well as a sleep technician, and so he is passionate about sleep as well as I am. We engage in a interesting conversation that explores all of the things that you probably think about as it relates to sleep, to dreaming, the stages of sleep. How much sleep do we need? What do parents need to know? I'm a swing shift worker. How do I maintain a healthy routine? Maybe you want to explore night shift work. Whatever the case is, all of the things related to sleep we are discussing. Disorders, the do's, the don'ts, self-soothers. We get into a lot of different topics, and that is why it's so long. But I wish that I had this amount of time with other people, especially. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you stay with us till the end, we play a really fun game of what would you rather, and you get to know Charlie a little bit better. He is one of the best people on this planet, a huge light, and spreading lots of love. So hopefully in the next 2-ish hours, we can help you get more restorative sleep and feel better. The last thing I'll say is that I actually met Charlie during one of my first sleep studies, and we bonded over a discussion about anxiety. So what's interesting is that you can A, make friends in all sorts of places. B, you can have philosophical discussions as well as scientific discussions with your friends, not to forget that. And to remember that if you are interested in getting a sleep study, there's nothing to be scared of. Now, while he might not be your technician and you might not live in our area, but it was not a scary experience. So that's the last thing I'll say. If it's on your docket to do, I encourage you to go ahead and do it. If you've been holding off on doing it because of, some fear of the unknown, I say go forth, my friend, and get your sleep study done, because you never know what will happen.
Anyways,
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Look at us go. Did you
like high tech for me?
Did you sleep well last night? Speaking of,
That's funny you said that. Yes, I did.
good.
Very vivid dreams. Always very vivid dreams.
Always. Do you think that's was that like always you, or is that like you ate some pizza or you had some medicine?
My mom would always say that about me. She'd say,
Okay, so always
Charlie,
then.
yeah, my mom would say, Charlie, you got to quit eating spicy foods before bed.
That's so funny.
I've found with over half the people I've studied that it's about 50-50. About 50%, and this is no scientific means whatsoever used in this, but I'd say about 50% of the people I've talked to have remembered their dreams, and the other 50 don't. But everybody, of course, dreams. About every 90 minutes to 2 hours, we kind of rinse and repeat through our dream cycle. So I'm just one of those that dream. My wife doesn't remember nothing, doesn't remember dreaming. But if we hooked her up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Neil doesn't either. Do you think that, okay, so with your patients, do you think there's a correlation between personality types that remember?
Oh, that's a good, for another talk, we'd have to look up that study and run a study on that. That's a good one. Like whether A types or B types dream more than the others.
Or like
or introverted, extroverted. How are you thinking?
Yeah, like me, I was thinking like you and I are both kind of the empath emotional side of things. And actually, I pulled out I pulled out a sleep book that I have, and to be fair, I'm not super impressed with it, but there's just a couple notes that I had
There's not
flagged
a lot of super impressive books, so
years.
you're okay in saying that. No
But
disrespect, but they're either very scientific or they're not as accurate as they should be.
they were talking about, oh, that's a really good point. They were
What
talking about insomniacs, and I was looking for my bookmark, which is not here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here. Okay. So they were talking about insomniacs and about like how they handle stress and conflicts and stuff like that. So, um, because they internalize a lot of the emotions, it leads to emotional arousal. And so because they're emotionally aroused, it then causes like psychological arousal, which then they face sleep difficulties at the sleep initiation, and it goes further. But my thought is like, you know, I'm quite emotional, and so there's a lot of psychological things happening before I go to sleep. Whereas Neil, he's like, you know, there's and you can ask him, and it's like a classic meme where the girl's like, what are you thinking about? And he's like, nothing. And then, the girl's like, well, how can you be thinking about nothing? You know? And he's like straight up, like he's not lying to you. He's like blank canvas. And then within seconds he's asleep. And so I wonder if the cognitive, like if you're not geared up, I don't know. I don't know. But okay, okay.
I think it'd be
So
hard to prove that scientifically, but I do believe that there are certain people who are just very black and white with life, no disrespect. And when they go to sleep, possibly they just can turn off the light switch,
mhm,
then wake
mhm.
up. Whereas people who are maybe are more introspective or people who empathically worry more
Yeah.
maybe carry that into their dreams. But I do find after studying people that people who seem to be hyper vigilant, people who seem to have a lot on their mind, so to speak, take it into their dream and then they'll dream about it. So there is something to be said for the saying, sleep on it in terms of trying to solve a problem. And I think some of the
Yeah.
greatest discoveries and songs written and inventions have come through sleep. So I think people who are very maybe inquisitive, again, this is not scientific, or people who are
Mhm.
posing a lot of questions, the brain will try to help you since there's less, you say it, less input coming in, sensory input. Bad, the
Yes.
brain will sit there and try to help you solve the problem because we talk as if it's like separate from ourselves, and it is and it isn't. That's the question, or that's the answer to that. It's kind of bizarre. But it will sit there and help its little buddy, your soul, try to figure out things. So it's some people look at it like a computer that is separate from us, and other people look at it as one. We're sitting here talking about it, and it is us. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of deep, as you know, but I think the brain sits there and tries to figure out problems and issues for you while you sleep, and that's why you wake up with the term, got it, or there's a
Yes.
Hewlett Packard commercial. Uh, I forget how they ended it, but it would be people waking up, doing something, and writing something on a piece of paper. And
Yeah.
it's something like I got it, or it's almost like a eureka moment. The brain does try to
Yes.
help you solve issues by putting things together. Since you're not listening, since you're not seeing things on a TV screen or talking on a phone, it will sit there and try to put things together for you. Isn't that beautiful about this 3 pound thing we're talking? That
Yeah.
is us.
Yes, and I think there's real value in that. Um, a couple of the people who I study, um, they speak highly of the power that's when you start to journal your dreams, write them down. I will tell you this, what I just recently heard, which is it's less about the context of the dream and it's more about the emotions that you're feeling. And so if you're able to wake up and capture those emotions, you would be better off, we'll say,
Yeah.
studying your emotions or like going with that wavelength versus the context of whatever it is. And if I had to think about all of the
You go with that.
dreams that I've had over the years that I vividly remember, and even some like sitting here today, like I can kind of pick out, um, it would be, yeah, less about the meaning, air quotes, of whatever, I was visualizing. And to some degree, I think what I was visualizing it definitely made sense with whatever my emotional state was, or maybe my cognitive state rather, but definitely the emotional signature of that has more
Well said.
relevance.
Oh, well said. It seems like you're very learned. Have you read about sleep books? Because you're very learned in the subject.
I've not read a lot of sleep books, but I have read a lot on the subject,
Okay.
probably more so through the internet because, so we kind of just jumped into this, but I've been in, sort of a recovering insomniac now in my 30s, but in my 20s, I was a full blown insomniac. And so solving that, and it's quite interesting to me, sleep and dreams and things like that. It's always been, when I think of the sciences, I love biology, I love the social sciences like psychology and stuff, but sleep is one of those as well. And I think now mainstream, we're starting, well, at least in my
Thank you.
world, I start to see more discussions around neuroscience and these collective um, voices or narratives around sleep, where the psychologist would say something, the neuroscientist would say something, and they both make sense versus being like completely opposites
Wow, you're seeing
of
a
each
synergy.
other. Yeah,
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 there's a synergy now, I think, because um, to quote a book that my anthropology teacher wrote was In Search of Ourselves, and it was an anthropological view of humans. But what I'm seeing now is like a morphine, that synergy that if I may, that you're saying, is that I'm
yeah,
hearing you, is we're starting to learn more about ourselves in terms of inside, not just as outside characteristics and where we might have came from or what we might have
hmm,
been, but in terms of learning about ourselves introspectively, like um, as sad as it is that we've turned ourselves kind of inward and not
yeah,
been more outward with all the technology. But one insightful thing, no pun intended, is we're starting to look inside of ourselves. And I think the greatest exploration, of course, space and the seas, but I think the greatest, for
mm,
me at least, exploration is within our own mind.
yes,
3.2 pounds, and it's the greatest, if I may, computer ever built.
yeah,
It requires about 20 to 25%, what I've read, the energy from the body, the oxygen, and it's the most powerful uh, computer. It's beautiful. So I think to go with
hmm,
the insightfulness and the other things we're talking about, the synergy, is, yeah, we're starting to learn more about the brain, and it is so beautiful. But yet again, like the seas and space, we're just barely starting to understand ourselves.
no, it makes complete sense to me, and I think about, one of the people I follow now, he's become very famous, as a psychotherapist and someone who only practices through imaging. He will not
That's
practice with
very
a patient.
interesting.
I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he'll practice with a patient, like he'll treat a patient, whether it's through talk therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or supplements and medication, but he only does it after he has had imaging on the brain because he learned early on in his life that the brain and the mind are connected. And so a lot of the mental health issues that we see are, in his experience, brain health issues. And so that
Good way of
what
looking
that
at it.
what that says to me though is still our minds are part of our brains, but they are
Right.
not all of it.
Isn't
And neither
that interesting that we're
our
talking about it?
well, and get this, we're gonna
Sorry,
take
as
it
we're talking about it as if it's separate from us, but it is and it isn't. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry.
And then to take it another layer deeper, when we think about mindfulness, your brain nor your mind is your identity. And so, like,
Oh,
one
that's
of the
deep. That's
most
very well said.
yeah, like, one of the most, liberating things that mindfulness can offer is, like, I am not my thoughts, I am having thoughts.
Oh,
And so, when
you
you
do
look
go
to
deep.
Sam Harris and, like, free will and thinking and how mindfulness can tap into these things and you become this witness or observer of your states of consciousness, like, there's these different layers
Well
of
said, like an onion.
yeah, but they're and they have strings attached to them, but they're like you said, they are somewhat the same and somewhat not. And so I think, over the course of 20 years, we've definitely made strides in the
Hmm.
science part of things. And there's been a connection of philosophical discussions to the scientific community that are now
Well
being
said.
proven by the scientific community, which were, in earlier years were completely, disregarded. And so very, very interesting to me, very, very interesting. And I think
What a
as it
kind of
relates to
hope.
like our conversation for the podcast, it's
Sure.
like how it translates to our well-being and our mental health and who we are. That's what's really fascinating to me is like there's this really big thing. And I think for professionals, especially caregivers who are professionals, to be talking about sleep and to think about sleep as a skill that you are
Oh,
building
well said.
and that requires and deserves your attention, your time, your awareness. Like if some of the most successful I just saw a clip yesterday of one of the most successful men, and depending on how you define successful, but a lot
Sure.
of different successful people in the world prioritize their sleep, and it is a non-negotiable, and they operate in a way that gives them higher quality states of existence for shorter amounts of time because they've recognized the importance of it. Whereas when we look at, our workforce, sleep is something that I think gets kicked to the back burner pretty early
Yeah.
on in
It's almost
someone's
like a
like,
luxury they treat it as
yeah, yeah.
instead of an essential. Sorry.
So let me yeah, so that kind of walks us into your sleep schedule. You are a sleep technician. You typically do not sleep at night, but you slept
Typically,
last
yes.
night,
Never on
right?
the job. Yes, I can speak that.
Yeah.
Yes, I did
So
sleep last night. I'm
so
home with
you
the family.
yep. So you're essentially a swing shift then. Would you like you're not a
Yes,
swing
that's right.
shift worker because your work always is at night, but your sleep is a swing shift. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is very accurate. Well said. And kudos to you for understanding the difference because if I just can throw something in with that, tie that in, after talking with police and fire and
Oh,
factory workers
yeah.
who are on swing shifts, I think it's unhealthier. And a lot of them agree, I think most of them will agree, that they'd rather be on a shift that's either full time nights
Mhm.
or at least 6 months at nights, and then 6 months of days or quarterly at the worst. But when they do it like every other week or weekly, they're switching because somebody
Mhm.
always wants days to spend with their family,
Sure.
but it's torturous. And I'm going to underline that in air quotes, or I'm not
Yeah.
air quotes, underline in air. That is torturous to the
Yeah.
human body to switch so often because the body, as you know, and the it can't. It's going. What are we doing here? What are we
Mhm.
doing here? I'm supposed to be sleeping tonight. You go, no, we're working tonight. And then the next week, okay, we're sleeping. No, we're working tonight. No, we're sleeping tonight. And so without that consistency, I think that led to a lot of mental health issues and physical issues pertaining to sleep in society. We need a schedule as humans. Our bodies are searching for homeostasis. Our bodies are looking for consistency always,
Mhm.
no matter whether children or adults, consistency is a key in homeostasis. Our body always searches for homeostasis, whether it's through sleep or sweating, chilling. You know how the body reacts to bring us back to norm. So when you keep switching it, the body's confused. And I think it affects, of course, the brain. And with the brain, as we spoke, to tie that in, can lead to memory problems, which leads to things down the road. I don't want to make too many tie-ins, but we can just imagine where some of those would go with in terms of memory and aging.
Mm-hmm. The 2017 Nobel Prize went to scientists who discovered certain mechanisms in relation to the circadian rhythm.
There you go. Very well
That's
said.
the kind of stuff that sticks with me, and the and how
Can't play with Mother Nature's circadian
its
rhythm.
implications. Yeah, the implications on our health and our well-being. And you bring up a really great point for caregivers and for these first line workers and people in your positions. There are certain industries out there that, it's not as if you have hours where you're like, all right, criminals, like, if let's all just, let's just we're gonna take a nap. Everyone's gonna take a nap at the same time. And then, and then at 4, we'll get back to it. Like, we can't do that, right? We can't be like, hey,
like
dog.
Kids when we were little, everybody go back to dinner. Everybody going to dinner, then we'll come out and play at this time.
Yeah, and like in our line of work, it's like, the dogs, the cats, do weird shit, and they got to go to the ER, etc. And so, yeah. So let me ask you then, what are your best tips? Are there 1, 3, 5? What are some simple things that swing shift workers could do in order to, at the very least, attempt in hacking their circadian rhythm to benefit them?
We got good questions, and thank you first of all, I've got to say thank you for having me on, and thank you for being so well educated. I'm very honored to be on and very humbled at your education level on this. So kudos to you for reading up on it. And thank you for recognizing swing shift workers and caregivers and stuff like that, and people like that, excuse me. But I would say, number one, I'm just going to be blunt. Yeah, I think you either are a night shift worker or you're not. I think your body's either built for it or not. And I don't know why some people will laugh and say, I was born at night, and has something to do with what time of it. I don't know about the scientific proof there, but when we went to school for it, and after talking for years to people who are in it or were in it and got out or were in it just briefly, I think you either have it or not. Some people, like, again, I use the word torturous. They do not like nights, and they soon find out it's not for them, and they'll do a day shift type of thing and sleep, or they'll totally, get out of it. So number one, I would say for somebody getting in it or somebody who's struggling, hang on, step back, figure out if this is what you really want to do. If you're just now studying it or in school for it, or whether it's sleep or caregiving, go sit some nights. I'll repeat it. Go sit some nights and see if it's for you. Number two is, if you are, that type of person, or if you think you can do it, or if you might be struggling just a little bit, here's some tips. You have to have a constant. That's too strong, but you have to have a. Excuse me, trying to find the right word. You have to be committed to your schedule. And what I mean by that is, when you work nights and then you go home, you have to be constant in your bedtime. You have to be constant in your preparation, getting ready to go to bed at a certain time, have the blackout curtains, put away your devices, shut down the lights, and kind of trick your body into it's nighttime. So you have to have a rhythm. And if you're not disciplined, that's what I'm looking for. You have to be very disciplined in your schedule. That's first and foremost. After, is this for me? I'd say second is discipline. Discipline, because when you come off the swing shift, when you come off night shift, you get a little high. It's like your dinner time, right? And you kind of get this pump up of, hey, I'm off work,
Like
I'm
a
gonna go
second
do some
wind.
stuff. Oh
Okay.
my gosh, thank you. And that goes with the circadian rhythm, because if you follow the circadian rhythm, and very briefly, there's times that your blood pressure is the highest, your blood pressure is the lowest, highest concentration, lowest concentration, best time to break down sugars, best time to work out. We're kind of playing with that circadian rhythm, right? So we're almost fooling our bodies, okay? And when you do get that second wind, you got to say, I've got to. You're trying to control yourself. You're trying to control your own. You're going against what your own biology is, which is kind of weird. So,
Can I pause you for a sec? Didn't you tell
yeah, go
me
ahead.
that, I think it was you that told me that there's a daytime rhythm, maybe it was you, maybe it was someone else, but there's a daytime rhythm
Yeah,
that we have,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
that circadian rhythm, but it's your
yeah.
natural dips in energy, like you said, whether it's the
Perfect.
physiology, like your blood sugars, or whether it's like your mood, stuff like that. And that is the same as your nighttime, like wakefulness, like
You
it's sort of normal to kind of
perfect.
wake up a little bit at night and then the day. And so, so what you're saying
You
is
did it
like people
perfectly.
who
You
get off of
remembered.
work, like even though it's time for them to go to bed, maybe they got a little burst of energy or something. And so
Yes,
what you're saying is to sort of ignore that burst of energy. Don't go grocery shopping. Don't go doing your
yes,
to-do list. Go ahead and wind down
yes.
and start
For the
your.
caregivers, yes. Your younger caregivers who are out there, yes. Follow this lady's
Okay.
advice. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's the ultradian rhythm. It's like ultra,
Yeah.
ULTR.
Yeah.
An ultradian rhythm, which you get an A for all those listeners out there. She's done her homework. She has a great
I
memory
just remember.
and a great person. Um, if you look at it, it cycles. Okay, the circadian rhythm is what we hear mostly, but basically, and I think I'm right from my schooling. The ultradian rhythm is the rhythm that follows us through the day, and I think the circadian rhythm could be also used interchangeably, but the ultradian rhythm is the one that we don't really talk about too much, and it's the one where um, people feel like they get a second wind at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Maybe they feel like, oh, I'm getting ready to be off work, but really, it's your body coming up. You have these troughs, you have these valleys, troughs, nadirs, some people call them, and then you have the apex. And that's why, just to draw something in for people so they might understand, sometimes when you feel like you're going to go to bed at 9 o'clock or 9:30 and you're kind of dragging, then all of a sudden you get a second wind, like you call it. You might be coming up
Oh, I know.
on a high, right? And then you end up watching a TV show till midnight, right? And then you come down
You
again.
miss
So
you miss
picture it,
your
guys.
sleep window. That's what I call it.
There it is.
That's what I call
And
it.
that's
And Neil's very familiar with
very
that.
good.
Like, and there's sometimes where
Very well said.
I will choose. I did this more in my younger years when I was working my 12 hours and like working myself to the bone. Um, but I've done this still a few times I just did it within the past month, and I will sleep on the couch. And because if I get up and walk to the bed, it's done. I'm up. And so I'll sleep on the couch, and luckily, because I've been with Neil so long, that he let me sleep. He didn't try to wake me up or anything. And when we did wake up in the morning, we had a conversation about it, and he was kind of like, he just recognized it. He's like, you were already dozing off or falling asleep, and I just figured I'd let you, because he knows that I would just wake up. Whereas he is built for it, where it doesn't matter. He could walk all the way upstairs, get his blood pressure up, like, and go right back to sleep. Whereas, a mouse farts and I'm like, oh, okay, we're ready to start the day. Like my brain's like, hamsters on the wheel. The mouses are, they want me, the mouses. So, okay, very cool. I love that. So are there more tips and tricks or,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay, you brought something up about when you're saying you and your significant other being different. Everybody has different body types, different in terms of body types, different, like you said, some people can fall asleep after drinking a pot of coffee.
Yes. Yeah,
Like
so night work
it's
is not
comforting
for
to me
me.
to have coffee before bed. What's that?
So night work is not for me. I've realized this.
No, and that's, and if you, and a lot of people, God bless them, my father and a lot of other people's mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers did it because they have to, and I know we have to. This world is tough, and we have to take some jobs and do some jobs, and kudos to all of us for doing
I've
that.
considered it, I've considered, because you can sometimes, for like people who are listening who might be vet professionals, like you can sometimes make more money doing ER, right?
Oh, of course.
And so I've
peaceful,
considered
too,
it.
guys.
Yeah. Ooh.
It's beautiful. The night opens up the mind, I think, a little bit. You're taking care of, you're the one standing guard for other people. You're giving almost sacrificing your health for others. Well, you are sacrificing your health for others, because sickness doesn't take a break. I tell people, like you said, crime doesn't take a break. So hats off to everyone out there who work first, second, third shift, but especially third shift, since we're talking here, is if it's
even like the factory workers, like who keep our world running, right?
Hats off. I take my hat off to everyone. So to go with some of the neat things about night work is there's sometimes it's less. I hate to use the word drama, but there's less drama than first and second shift. So if you're looking for some peace, third shift is nice. It doesn't mean you're not working. It's just that there's less sensory stimulation coming in, less noise, so to speak. So for a person, like I've had anxiety a lot of my life, third shift is better for me because there's less stimulation coming in.
That's beautiful.
I'm not, not being smart or not doing intellectual stuff or caring correctly. It's just that I can focus more, on one task, two tasks.
That's really beautiful for me. Like same as far as be overwhelmed and data input. It's like if I were to do some nighttime work, there's a fine line between enough stimulation so that you're not tired, right? Like you're working, but like having less, that would be. And what's interesting is when you said the nighttime sort of opens up and it's very peaceful, that's a really different, like a 180 from sometimes how I think about the night as someone who's struggled with their mental health states and insomnia. For me, there's a huge anxiety that comes about at night and being alone and I'm fine being alone with myself and my thoughts, but there's a loneliness that emerges for me. And there is a prompt that my brain or my mind or whatever is like, oh, let's start evaluating everything. And then we're gonna.
It's one of the rabbit holes you can go down.
Yeah, and some of it's just not true and things like that. But so I have like a negative connotation sometimes when I think about the night. Whereas like what you're saying, this is like no, if you're especially if you're in this line of work of nighttime, focusing on what's really cool about working at night. That's really neat. That's really neat.
Because people think we sleep. People think we don't do anything. On the contrary, it's just that you're in a different realm. I'd say a more peaceful realm where you get to think about things deeper. The stuff you're working on, and when you have 5 minutes, some stuff about life will come through I think, more clearly. And sometimes, the work stuff comes more clearly because, seriously, guys, you have less stimulation coming in. That's, I say, noise.
Yeah.
At night. And so, but the one caveat that you brought up is you got to be careful. Again, the word discipline comes in effect, like with the sleep, in your sleep. So you got to be disciplined in the mind to not go down those rabbit holes of, self-introspection too much, because even during the day is not good, but because it's dark, we use lights. We make it so that we trick our bodies at night.
Sure.
We do. So this is basically a trick on the mind and the anatomy, what we're telling people not to do. But again, we're sacrificing, and hats off to the
You have
listeners
to.
for
You have
being
to.
caregivers. I call them
Mhm.
earth angels. Whether you're a guy or a girl, you're an earth angel, giving
It's
your health up for others.
skill to understand like how certain things do influence you, and like you said in the beginning, you know, being able to turn the pull those levers or flick that switch or not, meaning these are the lights that are going to keep me up, these are the lights that don't keep me up, these are, you know,
Right. Foods,
the habits
the
or the
drinks.
foods, the
Yep.
drinks. Yes, yes, like that have cherries. Cherries have melatonin in them. You eat a bucket of cherries, you might get a little sleepy. Pistachios, stuff like that. They have melatonin in them. So you if you eat that, you know, you might get a little sleepy. If you eat 2,000 calories of a Whopper and fries
That's
and
what we got to be
soda,
careful of.
y-
Oh,
and
we're so bad at third shift at that. Yes, ma'am.
so, you know, you might, because your resources pool in your belly, you know, your gut, etc. And so just
Craving the carbs and the
understanding,
sugars at night. Yep.
yeah, really, how do you fall asleep on a night like last night then?
It took me, if I'm going to go back, it took me, I'd say, I tell these younger people, don't give up. It took like 3 to 6 months. It didn't happen overnight. Um, training the body. So you're training the body. I got real emotional, and I was going to give up. I remember calling my wife,
Mm.
my beloved wife, and saying, I don't know if this is for me. And it was just me being. She says, Charlie, you know, you're tired. Try to go back to bed. And so I guess you train, just training the body to, um, you know, do the switch. I work Sunday, Monday, Tuesday nights, and then I get off. And heck, Tuesday I'm on a high because I'm
Yeah.
off. You know, I'm off for 4 days, but you're really not. You got to spend a lot of time sleeping, recovering, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Tuesday I got to go to bed, or I'll be toast. I'll sleep all of Wednesday. Okay,
Messes
so
up the
Wednesday
whole.
morning, excuse me,
Mhm.
when I get off Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning, you have to go to bed
Mm.
when you come home. Don't sit there and go shopping. Don't go out to eat. Even though you're on that high, try to go back to bed, then get up and have a normal night with your family. Yes, you might not feel like eating dinner
And
that they prepared, but at least sit with them, um, and you know, talk with them and get your body ready. And this is what's weird. On your flip day, you're going to bed again the same day. So your flip
okay.
day,
Yep.
you're
Wednesday
going to
night.
bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to bed in the morning, and then you're going to bed at night. That is
Uh,
one of your toughest days. Is what I call the flip day.
do you sleep for
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
same duration then, or do you cut it off a little bit earlier on that
Oh,
Wednesday
beautiful,
morning
beautifully
sleep?
said. I think, if I may, and those listening out there, I think it's different for each person. But I would try to
Okay.
say, try to be consistent. Try to get. I know I'd get yelled at for. Don't say 6 hours. I don't think you're going to get a full 8 hours or
Mhm.
7 hours of sleep. But
Mhm.
try more than two guys. Try more than three. Try to get at least 6 hours, to really get you ready, um, for the remainder. Because what you do, I think, that day, as the days when you're, you know, prepping for work or coming off work, try to be somewhat consistent. So consistency is huge. So try a good question. Try to get
Yeah.
6 hours at least. You get up, you're with your family. This is just for me. I'm saying.
Mhm.
And then at night, this is what's weird. Your body, when you first start, into this, your body will say, "Hey, we're supposed to be at work tonight," and you'll wake up at one
Mhm.
o'clock at night, or 2 or 3, and you're saying, "No, no, this is a night." It's almost like talking to a child. This is a night we're going to stay in bed. Yeah, give yourself permission, and once you get into a habit and or discipline, I don't mean
Mhm.
military
Mhm.
type discipline,
Sure.
but
Sure.
once you get in a rhythm, your body will understand the rhythm. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you guys, when you get out of it and to go for a vacation, or you're sick for a while, or something happens,
Mhm.
and you get off that, it's weird. You're like, I was in a rhythm of sleep for 3 days, you know,
Mhm.
work for 3 days, you know. It's weird. You will trick your body. You can trick your body. Eventually you'll have to, you know, retire and give it up and kind of repair the body from what you've done to it for years. But you can successfully be in a career at night, for a very long time if
Mhm.
you have a rhythm. That's what I would say.
I
Rhythm and
love that.
discipline.
Yeah. I love that. And you kind of tapped into hours a little bit, which was one of my questions I wanted to know. I'm some semi new mom, right? He's 3 now, but he's still
Okay.
he's probably going to be like me sleeping. But as a parent, it's like how many hours is, you know, I know quality is important. We kind of touched a little bit on sleep hygiene. We can kind of go down those rabbit holes a little bit for just like sleep basics. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what everyone's sleep knowledge is out there, and I have learned not to assume that everyone has a baseline of like what proper sleep hygiene is, or that even that they know what that word is. So we'll talk about the basics in a second. But just yeah, like how many hours, and what I was told, and maybe you can confirm or deny or whatever, and none of this is medical advice or anything like that. This is all just,
Sure.
we're
Same
talking.
here.
But
Yes.
he told me you need at minimally, like in for new parents especially, or whatever, like you were talking about these sleep schedules that are different. Mind you, as I mentioned in the beginning, as if you want to model more successful people, whatever you define success, happy, money, whatever, different career levels, achievements, whatever, and how you said you have to do what's right for you. So typically I sleep a lot. And this actually, especially for our listeners who may have gone through our 24-hour mastery course, if you've gone through that, you'll know that Dr. Holly and I, especially in the early days of GM, we would wake up very, very early to accomplish things because we were still full-time employed and we were trying to launch the company, and then we were trying to master our states and whatever. But since that, and again, like I have, even just in the past 5 years, my sleep has changed where I'm lucky, really, really lucky to have built something to where I don't have to most of the time wake up with an alarm clock. I wake up with the sun. And so that was one of the mistakes I made in my early days, is that I had the blackout curtains, but as an insomniac, that wasn't really helping me because I was sleeping into the day. And so I don't, the curtains are open. And so I wake up with that sunrise. And like a grandparent, I go down with the sun too. I'm like, oh, gotta get my readers, but,
that's how us humans were, I think, supposed to be.
so that was a long-winded explanation, but he said something like, the 4 to 5 hours where you can get at least one of the cycles, where you can get through one of the cycles. And this is where you come in, because like the REM cycles, the NREM, and so forth. And so it's like you've got to have at least 4 to 6 hours in order to get through a solid cycle where, again, just at least one of the cycles where it's restful
Very
sleep.
well.
Restful.
There you
And
go.
then if you're up and down with baby or kids or whatever the case might be, and again, to remember, like, it's somewhat natural to wake up at night, and so it's your discipline. I wake up a lot to be able to say no, it's go back to sleep, it's not time to wake up yet. Or there are times where if it is 3 a.m. I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling good. I got a cool project that I'm excited about. I'll be like, all right, let's do this, and I get up and I text Quincy and he happens to be up. You know what I'm saying? Like he's like the only person. You might be up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And it'll be weird because it's such a random thing that I would wake up at that time and allow myself to get out of bed. But most of the time it's like, shut up, go back to sleep. It's not time to wake up yet. And just get more hours, somewhere I probably sleep, let's see, if sunrise, kid 6, so 6, I might sleep 9-10 hours most of the time.
Good for you.
Uh,
Good for you.
but yeah, what's the minimum? What's the minimum
You know
that we
what?
should be looking at
Great
as far
question.
as quantity, and then we'll get into quality.
We're gonna address quality first. We're gonna go backwards.
Okay.
For me, and over 10 years, and I'd say between at least 3,200 to 3,500 patients watched sleep, in terms of sleep studies, guys. I'm not a doctor, just terms of titrations and PSGs, which are just sleep tests, big word for sleep test, is I would go for, it sounds so funny. We have such huge words we use in medicine and sleep, but there's some terms, I swear they're out there, called short sleepers and long sleepers,
Okay.
so to speak, but I think they're actually terms out there. And some people don't require as much sleep, they're finding out. Not everybody is the 6 to 8. So I guess I'm talking about quality and quantity in one here.
Know thyself. I love it.
No, very, very good. Know thyself, because there are people who I've seen function and didn't have comorbidities because of it. And it could be, there could be many factors. Could be genetics, could be many things that I'm not qualified to speak of. But they're finding out that some people can function on less. And people will say, hey, I've done it this way for years and I'm fine. And I've looked at their charts and watched them sleep, and I'm like, either they got good genetics or this is, this theory's true. So not everybody needs the same amount of sleep. I'll just state that. But on average, we're going to talk averages here. On a typical, we try to get at least 6 to 8. And the reason we're trying to get at least 3 REM cycles in there. REM is huge. REM, rapid eye movement for those. That's when we believe, and we talk kind of in these wide parameters and don't speak in definites, because we're talking about the brain and we're still learning about ourselves, knowing thyself. But it's good for the brain to defrag, clean the house, prune the tree, however you want to say it. And it happens, we believe, every 90 minutes to 2 hours. And I can actually say that I see that every night, every person. I don't think I've not seen a study where somebody hasn't dreamed. Maybe 1 out of 1,000, I would say. And with you caregivers, with the vets, the pets, and the vet techs, and all you guys out there taking care of our animals, thank you. You've seen them move, right? You see them try to move their little feet. They'll bark maybe or murmur something. It's so important. The quality is so important to go through the REM cycles. That's when you were talking about missing your window. Very important thing you said, especially with children, young mothers and young fathers. Don't let the children miss that window, because when you're little, your body is releasing hormones more so than we're as adults, right? You're growing. The mind is growing. The body is growing. When you miss those windows, you don't get those windows back. And so you'll have, I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to say it perfectly, but you don't want to have stunted growth mentally or physically because you didn't get your children in bed and they were up at night and did not get their hormones released properly or long enough. So please do not miss your REM cycles. And that's why they always say at least 4, I'd say at least 6. Try to get through 3 REM cycles that happen about every 2 hours, because it is cleaning the brain. It is putting away the memories, okay? Memory transfer. So
into long-term memory.
The long-term, from short-term to long-term, you're defragging the computer, getting ready for the next day, and releasing hormones and all the things about the brain controls. So I guess I don't mean to run on. Sorry, guys.
No,
I guess what I want to say is the REM cycle is so important. And if I may sidetrack, studies have shown, and these are just studies I've read about, is that if they wake somebody up during the night, the first dream period, and they said, what were you dreaming about? If they can remember, they'll say it's basically work, life stuff. The second one, basically the same stuff. When you get into third, and especially the fourth one, if you're lucky enough to get that one right before you wake up, it's more animalistic. It's more, maybe more sexual. It's one that doesn't make sense. They say that comes from the inner brain. They're trying to figure out, where the dreams are actually coming from. They said it derives from the brainstem area, the last one. And that's why we wake up scratching our head going, why was I being chased by the monkeys from the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz? Strange dreams you cannot put a finger on. Those are the ones I think, and I believe, are the ones that we're trying to learn more about ourselves and our fears, whereas the computer part of our brain at the beginning, and this is just me thinking and watching people, is putting away the stuff that's normal, the daily tasks, the daily routines. And then as we fall deeper into sleep, and REM gets longer as we sleep, so REM starts off shorter, and then that big one at the end. It's so important to get those, to learn more about ourselves and learn more about what we need to do during the days.
Is that tapping more into our subconscious when you say our inner brain?
I believe.
Okay.
That is my personal opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's why that one is so important. And we do not wake people up. We try not to wake them up in dreams because nothing bad's going to happen. Nothing, going to hurt. But we want that brain to cleanse. We want you to tap into. I think that's where I do a lot of my lucid dreaming. I don't mean to get off on another.
That was what I was talking about. I think that's where I do a lot of my
lucid dreaming. Yeah. And that's beautiful. That's maybe a story for another time. But I think we're really learning about ourselves, that last one, because it's the longest. And it's the one where you feel like you can control it more. You kind of, sometimes if people don't know what lucid, you become aware that you're dreaming, but not so aware that you wake up, but aware that you can control your dreams. And they use lucid dreaming and trauma, trying to treat people with trauma. And that's a very interesting
Well, that's what I mentioned earlier. Tim Ferriss talks about lucid dreaming, and it's somewhat of you can sometimes, sleep is a great place to start playing with that. But the more you get into these practices of like optimizing or mastering your body and stuff, you can tap into it through meditative states as well.
Yeah.
And it's referred to it as something different, but it's essentially the same thing. And so that's where, like, again, writing that stuff down, but also being able to, like you said, intentionally input something in order to work with it in that state of lucid dreaming. So, like, again, Quincy and I have done this, where we're trying to do it, we'll say do it right, like sort of play with it, because you just have to figure it out. And so, there's you do nothing, you wake up, you kind of have that lucid dream. And I'm, for one, definitely, I'll fall back into the same dreams. And sometimes where it's just unintentional, you're just, you're sort of in that victim mode, not victim, but just like, you're not controlling anything. And then there's the times where it's like, oh, dude, that was sweet or dope or like whatever, like I want to go back into that dream. Like, and so I'll tell myself, like, let's go back into that dream, and then sure enough, there it is. Or like if I'm really like, there is, like I said, if I'm trying to do something with work or solve a problem, or get into sort of that psychedelic state of like, I want to work with something, then I have to know that before I go to bed that night, right? Because it's not like I'm going to think about it at 5 a.m. But if I think about it like at night, then it's kind of on my mind, and so I can tap into that in the morning. So that's
you write it
really
down
cool.
Before you go to bed? You keep a little, say, I want to
do this. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. And like I said, I was doing it kind of like in a phase, like consistently a while back. I haven't done that intentionally in a while. Can you talk about the different dreams that we have? Because we have multiple types of dreams, right? Actually, hang on. Before I get into that, again, from this book that I like, it's called The Sleep Revolution. It's by Ariana Huffington. If you are interested in sleep,
great.
it is worth reading. The reason why I said that it was
Huffington's a great author.
So she is a great author, but a lot of the content I was already familiar with, and so that's why for me, like, there was some stuff that I kind of browse through versus getting into the deep stuff. But one of the things I had a tab on was in traditional Chinese medicine, we know sleep is yin. And I would concur with this, that in yoga and in that world, that side of things, yin is the softer, or what she describes as the nourishment, which is essential for restoration. And overstimulation, on the other hand, she singles out as the driver of our sleep deprivation crisis, being considered excessive yang or heat and inflammation. And so there are, she kind of goes on to talk about different supplements and things like that, and different modalities of care, such as the acupuncture, that can help you prepare for your sleep, which I definitely use. But so I think that's a really, again, we're starting to see these mergings of Western and Eastern traditions and science and things like that, where we see the weight in them, and that's something I deeply appreciate, deeply appreciate, because I don't think that we have like just one thing. I don't believe that one culture or one approach is always the answer. I really think that we have to have a holistic approach to our sleeping. For dreams, I just think it's a cool, like we have short dreams that are, if I remember correctly, short dreams that are, and I don't remember, we have short dreams and long dreams, and we have vivid dreams and less vivid dreams. But I can't remember, is it the short ones or the long ones? Because what I remember is that you would dream hundreds of times throughout your sleep cycle. And so there's when you're in the different sleep cycles, or the like REM, non-REM, and then I think there's more than just those two, right? So do you remember any of that stuff?
What scientifically we're taught in school between non-REM and REM. So you have wakefulness, have stage 1 non-REM, stage 2 non-REM, stage 3 non-REM, and then you have rapid eye movement, REM. It doesn't go in that order. You could go from wake, if you're really tired, you can go from wake to stage 2. And with these stages, guys, I mean the brain frequencies. We're taught how to read brain waves. But normally people will go and, be awake, of course, and then they'll slip into stage 1. Stage 1 is usually the transition, is the doorway. And sometimes it can be as short as 6 to 8 minutes, or some people have trouble falling asleep, insomniacs. You could have wake 1, then back to wake. We call that wake after sleep onset for people who wake up a lot after they've slept. Stage 2 is the one you're in the most, non-REM 2. It's about, I'd say, they'll kill me guys on this, but about 30 to 40% of your sleep is stage 2. Stage 3 is a really important one, and people don't talk about it enough, is the deep sleep. It's called delta sleep because the waves are giant. Your brain waves are giant. They look like mountain peaks, like a delta sign or signal, the triangle. And then REM. So this is something that's interesting, is there is dreaming, and I've read and I've been taught, there is dreaming during the other stages, 1, 2, and 3. However, scientifically, and that's a little above my head, scientifically, the only way we can tell on a polysomnogram if they're dreaming, how I've been taught, is the phasic eye movements, which is the rapid eye movement. We put 2 leads, one on the outside of the eyes, one on the left side, one on the right side. So picture your face, and you have a lead, and a lead, guys, is like a gold-plated metal thing. For those of you who've never had a sleep study, it's a EEG lead cup, little metal cups, tiny, which have wires on them. And what we're picking up is the deflection in the eyes. And what I mean by deflection, the eyes go back and forth. So if you ever watched a child or a puppy or an animal, for those of you in the vet field, you'll see the eyes moving back and forth, and that's called rapid eye movement. That's where the term REM comes from. And so we can't tell when you're dreaming in the other stages. Okay. That's honesty. I mean, that is pure honesty. We can only tell by the phasic eyes on the EEG when the eyes start moving. So I'll only see, and you'll have short bursts. There'll be some short dreams in there, yes. And usually the first one of the night, It could only be like,
Sure.
we only see it on one epic, which is like a 30-second screenshot, guys. We might see the eyes move, pump, pump, and the brain waves change. There's little signals that your brain waves start to change, and then you'll see the eye, boom, phasic eye, REM, and then it'll go away. But as the night goes on, you only usually see, I'd again say 3 to 4 to 5 times, but duration of them for somebody who's been awake for long periods of time and has REM rebound, or you're put on CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure, or some other, BiPAP, ASV, or oxygen, you might REM rebound, and boy, oh boy, you might watch somebody dream. This is no joke, for an hour, no joke, and you'll see the rapid eyes. You'll see they're in the dream state with their brain waves, low chin tone, and that's what we see on the polysomnogram. And so that's what interests me more, is I don't know about the dreaming in the non-phasic period, but there is dreaming, but I can only tell when I look at my screen the phasic. And boy, oh boy, that last one is a ride sometimes. And if I may, I've got this, I don't know if I can research this before I pass, but I watched the eye movements, the eye deflections on the screen, and they're moving so fast in some of the dreams. It's just, cycles per second, hertz. And I will ask the person when they wake up, I'll say, did you just have a dream? And I know they did, and they'll go, yes. And I go, was it pretty wild? And the ones who can't remember will go, oh my God, I was like, let's say robbing a bank, or I found money, or I was, having the time of my life. And I associate the rapid eye movements with help me out with the word, the vividness of the dream. And it's so beautiful because what I tell my patients, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm just a technician. What I tell my patients, the doctor's patients, but I consider them mine, I treat them like my own kids, is that you're watching a chemical, electrical picture show in your head. That's what the dogs are doing, the cats are doing, the horses are doing. All mammals are watching a picture show, and we're no different.
Yeah.
And your eyes are going back and forth like you're watching something beautiful. And that's why that last one is so important to get, guys, in your sleep. Don't cheat yourself out of your REM periods.
Yeah.
So sorry for kind of going on there, but I can only tell dreams, to answer your question, Miss Renee, is I can only tell dreams scientifically from the EEG, and we pick it up by the eyes, and the brain waves will go to a different frequency, and the chin tone will get real low. You lose your muscle tone because your body's basically self-paralyzing. It's
right,
self-paralyzing,
so that you don't act out your dreams. Yeah. And
but there are short dreams. They can be so short, it's just a blink of an eye.
Yes. Yeah.
But they get longer during. Okay, the deep sleep is at the beginning. That's another thing, guys. If I may, your deep sleep, your stage 3 is at the beginning. Go ahead. That's important to get. Sorry.
Yeah, and so with that, actually, there's a meditation, and this is like we were talking about that lucid dreaming, like sort of instilling something when you wake up. But actually, like Wayne Dyer has a really cool 5-minute meditation that you can find on YouTube. Love Wayne Dyer, but he's one of them. But I've done others. I do, especially in my early days. This was how I got into meditations: was guided pain meditations or guided sleep meditations. I still do a lot of the sleep meditations, a little bit less on the pain, but still I have pain, so I do both. And the purpose of Wayne's is he talks about, so maybe where you're talking about that transition, even though those first few stages are the computer working something out, what we are inputting into our minds or our brains right before we go to sleep is really, really important. And I would encourage you, I would almost challenge you, if you're listening to this, to go and find that YouTube 5-minute meditation from Wayne Dyer, because he talks about why it's so important and how we can somewhat drop an idea into our subconscious, so that during that sleep cycle, at some point, we don't have to control it. At some point, like you said, the brain's going to take over and it's going to do its thing. but it would help
Sure.
you work it out. And sometimes it can be
Sure.
really
Or what we
helpful
think.
to us.
Sorry.
Like, is it serving us? Are the thoughts that we have before we go to sleep serving us, or are they not serving us? So if we're like looking at
Well said.
life coaching and
Renee.
things like, and just kind of bettering ourselves
Sure.
in a passive way, talking about like maybe a little hypnosis again that's working for you.
Yes.
And this is where even when
Let
you
your
look
body
at
help you. Yes.
yeah, like different again, like meditative states mimic the same types of brain waves that our sleep mimics. And so whether it's sleep
Very,
or whether
very
you're
good.
going to start meditating or whether you're going to start using your sleep as a type of meditation, again, we're just talking about like intentionality and tapping into this this really cool program within your operating system that can help you just help you in whatever way you want to do, versus going to sleep, especially like if you've gone to sleep with a TV show. Everyone's probably had this experience where they go to sleep and then they dream about that TV show, right? So what if you go to sleep and you have, whether it's yourself talking or a guided meditation and sort of that hypnosis or something where you're like suggestive, where yeah, like maybe you're trying to quit smoking, or maybe you want to increase your confidence, or maybe you want to like sort of those things.
It's my tongue also.
And yeah, and just kind of
reasoning, suggestive thinking.
Yeah. And so it's just
you're trying not to trick yourself, but you're trying to lead yourself.
Yeah, and lead yourself in a really intentional way. Like, what do you want to think about? And kind of and some people would even say like this is where you can really start to manifest things. Whether it's Wayne Dyer or Esther Hicks or again, some of the most successful people in the world, once they kind of hit success, Rob Dyrdek, I love him. Loved him in the early 2000s, still love him now. He talks about this a lot. Oprah. So like, I don't want people to discount it like, oh, that's just BS or, bukkake or whatever. But no, it's a thing. And so, one of our like Quincy's like hard ride or die. Yeah. Wallace Waddles talks about this a lot. Is building the ideal, right? So if we're talking about get motivated, if you've been through the Design Your Life 360 course, if you are working on your personal and professional development, if you're trying to solve for what is my ideal state of existence? What does my ideal life look like? What does my ideal life feel like? What do I want my relationship to be like? What do I want? What is my dream house? Like, most people can't answer these questions. So those are the kind of questions that you would want to ask your brain before you go to sleep. When you get into these non-linear thinking patterns where this is what you're thinking about, you're building out, and you're building out this in such detail. The first time that you think about it, I talk about this a lot, is when you start to answer these personal development questions, it's very like one word answers. Well, I want, happiness, or I want connection, I want love, whatever. But then the more and more and more you do it, you have this very vivid picture. The types of stones that you're laying on your dream property. You know what it feels like to open that door. You have this really vivid picture. You know what it's like to be with your significant other, or build a really cool relationship with your kids, or go to work and have an excellent interaction with every human that you encounter, with every animal that you encounter. Like, you start to really get detailed on what these different things are. How much money do you want to see in your bank account? What would give you peace of mind? And you actually get these emotional signatures where, and again, like when they study gratitude and the emotional signature of gratitude, what it does to your pathology. And it's very healing. It's very healing to our DNA. It's very healing to, if you laugh, it heals the telomeres on the ends of your DNA, which fray when you're stressed. So if you can laugh before bed, it's like, you're kind of doing a double dose of healing. And so just all these different things that can happen right before you go to sleep, and then of course when you wake up. But again, using your sleep to work for you versus just being this thing
Very well.
like breathing, where it's just going to happen at some point. If you're not paying attention, sure, you're going to probably fall asleep at some point, but how much, like, you can really make your sleep work for you. And then that's where, like, Brendan Bouchard will talk about, like, generating energy. You don't just wake up and expect to have energy. No, now you're generating this kind of stuff. You're generating the proper thinking.
More successful looking at it that way. Yes.
Yeah, like the proper thinking. Like Albert Einstein says, you can't solve your problems with the same way of thinking that got you into them. So change the way that you're thinking, right? Change your thoughts, change your life. That's Wayne Dyer. And all of this stuff is really tied into it. Yeah, that was my rant.
I can tell some of my patients this. No, it's like amping up your sleep to work for you, whether it is for physical or mental means or both. It does not be one of the things like you eat just to eat, you sleep just to sleep, you wake just to wake. It's like using sleep at its ultimate, at its optimal, being more mindful of your sleep and using your sleep. You're tricking, again, not tricking your body, but you're using the body at its full potential, or trying to get there, or get more power out of your sleep, make it more meaningful. Well said. Very good monologue there. I loved it. No, I need to teach my patients, because most of us look at sleep as another chore, another labor.
Yes.
Why not?
Yes.
It's so fascinating. Why not let it work for you?
Yeah.
Because it is working for you. When you're asleep, people who don't have good sleep usually have trouble breaking down sugar. So your sugar is metabolized at night a lot. So sometimes we see it with people with diabetes, and some people can't, or it's, the pancreas isn't working and all that, and it's, diabetes 1 versus diabetes 2, but you're type 1 versus type 2, excuse me. But when you miss out on your sleep, you're affecting your sugar. You're affecting the breakdown of, your food.
Yeah.
So why not ramp up the sleep to help you physically, which we know. Yep. But mentally, I don't think we use it mentally enough. That was very well said, what you had, what you've read. Kudos to you. And
I think,
why not let it work for you? If it's going to work against you,
right?
And bring, like, most of the time, most of the dreams I've had personally, and the dreams I've heard from thousands of people, have been anxiety driven. Okay?
Yeah.
I believe. I'm always late for school, so I'm an anxious guy, right?
Yep.
Take medicine for it and all that stuff, but still have the anxiety dreams, okay? So I'm always late for school. I'm always late for the test. I haven't graduated yet. I don't have shoes on going to school. My teeth are falling out. So your body is still dealing with stresses from previous, childhood. We won't get too deep into certain subjects, but or from work, okay? So if the body's always dealing in this constant state of adrenaline and cortisol and waking up at night, we need to train it to say, hey, why don't you help me, brother? Why don't you help me, sister? Instead of just, it's trying to, but unfortunately it can only do so much. And I think we need to add better gas to the gas tank. Is that a good way?
Yeah.
Better feed the brain better.
Yeah.
Not just food wise, but I'm talking, what I'm talking about, better thoughts. And train it to help you, because it is powerful, guys. It is powerful. That brain, it's beautiful and powerful, and it will be used any way you want it to. So let's use it for good, to help ourselves. Is that better?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, instead of an anxiety-driven thing, because if I remember your sleep study, if I may, I won't say where it was and won't say names and all that stuff, but you did not have what I consider like sleep apnea. Yours was more, you're hypervigilant is what if I could diagnose it, which I can't, but just my professional opinion. Your pain and your thoughts controlled your sleep more. And you had a lot of microarousals. You had a lot of arousal. Your arousal index was very high. You did not go into deep sleep, okay? So when you wake up in the morning, more fog, more cortisol, more adrenaline, you're not getting restful sleep. You're not letting your sleep work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so yours wasn't about sleep disordered breathing. Yes, you have sleep disorder. You have a sleep disorder, but yours is more of calming the mind and calming the body to let it work for
Mm-hmm.
you, and not vice versa. Sorry.
I love that you brought that up because I wanted to see if you remembered anything from my sleep studies. Because if you remember, I've been in two with you, right? And so I'm cool with sharing it. But the first one that brought me to it is because I was having heart palpitations. I still have heart palpitations, but it's not, there's it's again, I think it's the nervous system and things like that. But even when it appears like I'm relaxed, they still happen and stuff. But again, I'm trying to work with my body and know thyself more and more and more. But
I'd say
so I think that's cool. But I do recall the second one when I came in for your class because you were an adjunct professor at one of the colleges near us at the time. And when I came in for that one, you mentioned the delta sleep and that it was very like childlike. And so that one, was that a deeper sleep then?
Yes, you must have been, and you can, it can. This is how beautiful sleep can change, guys. It's not like you're stuck forever in a certain way. You do a lot of, if I may, from my opinion, you do your homework. You try to practice what you preach, and by the next time I saw you, you increased your delta sleep and had more deep sleep. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important. So important. People don't talk enough about stage 3 delta sleep. And so you went from having lower frequency. So the delta waves are wider. Children have them, guys. They're beautiful. We all have them. But infants and children, they jump off the screen, the brain waves. So we're talking about watching the brain in the frontal, central, and occipital lobes during sleep. We're watching the brain fire, the neurons fire, and it gets amplified and put on our screen and, differentiated, and it comes out in this nice, beautiful pattern. Your patterns weren't as tight in terms of once your brain waves went from being very tight, okay? You're worrying, you're thinking too much, you're aware, you're up, you're down, you're awake, you're tossing, you're turning. And you went into a deeper sleep and stayed more into a deeper sleep. And I think you might have coached your body, might have changed your food habits or exercise habits or all the above, and used your sleep for you. And when you did that, your body said, I'm going to treat you. And you went into deeper N3 delta sleep. So congratulations. You had worked on it and changed it rather quickly.
I think for me now, I think I still have both types of sleep. Like if I were to do a study, like if I were just to take 30 days and come in with you, I would probably have both types of sleep and probably somewhere in the middle. Something, that
it changes. You're exactly right. It changes night from night.
I noticed.
I mean,
there, when I travel, there's different types of sleep, before the presentation, after the presentation.
Of course.
And then, like with Neil and baby Gavin, it's like we will, we try to recognize like, okay, what would help Renee get a better quality sleep and do that as often as we can so that at least throughout the month or through the weeks I'm getting these restorative sleeps if it's
Very
not
well
a nightly thing, so that's really interesting.
What you can.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so
you got to steal it from yourself. It's weird. You're stealing from yourself.
Yeah. Let's do like a bit of a like some lightning questions if I can, where we've got like so sleep hygiene. What are like basics and then complex?
Let's say we're talking about people who are would you say well, I guess you could use it first, second, third shift. We're going to talk about, because we got all types of people listening who work different shifts. Consistency, guys. Consistency
Okay.
and discipline with your sleep. Treat your sleep like everything else. Your food, your work, your family. Love your sleep. Okay? Be consistent. So, number one is try to have, we also try to have a set schedule, whether it's night shift, first shift, second shift, whatever time you go to bed. Try to kind of keep a consistency. So when we ask you on sleep forms, we try to look for a pattern of consistency.
Right.
Second would be, the stressors. We try to tell people with the anxiety, like myself and others, to kind of leave it outside the door of the bedroom or leave it next to the bed on a note. But when you go into your bedroom, that is your domicile. That is your safety area. That is for sleep. And try to stay out of the bed. And I know a lot of people have read this. I don't mean to bore you guys, but try just to use sleep for sleep, your bedroom for sleep. They say sleep and sex, but excuse me for saying that. But just use your bed. Don't use your bed as like a lot of us did during the COVID time as your office, your bed. So you have to associate your bed with sleep. That'll be number two. 3 would put the devices down. Oh my God, I know we're using devices now, and I got like 8 of them attached to me. But when it comes to bed, don't sleep with your phone. I look back, because I was a kid of the 60s and 70s. I look back, and I wanted to do a commercial where everybody takes their phones, the rotary phones with the cords, and we all bring them to bed in different scenes. Like, how funny that would be to drag that phone, you know what I mean, into bed. It does. I mean, just think, guys, you're activating your adrenaline and your cortisol. So if you want to get healthy, guys, we got to lower the amount of adrenaline and cortisol that's hitting us. And that stuff adds weight. It eats at the brain. It makes us anxious in so many different ways and affects all of our different systems. So reduce the anxiety. Okay, and just kind of use that bedroom as a calming thing, like you do for your kids. You would not take your child, your beloved child, and put a phone and a computer and Netflix. I do have a TV. I need to fall asleep to noise. I still get scared going to sleep. I do. You're giving up. What's weird about sleep, guys? You're giving up your power. Yeah. And you're falling into a state that you can't control. So yes, you can have some self-soothers, but let's make them self-soothers that are more common, like some stuff you might put on that smells good, the lavender, or some of the rain noise, as long as it doesn't go to high frequencies. Keeping your room cool. It's better, they say, that your body stays at your room stays around 68 degrees or cooler. Oh yeah. And that you're under warm blankets. Okay, so we're kind of telling the body it's okay to relax and do your thing now. You wouldn't run a marathon and then jump straight into bed, I don't believe. Some people might, or wouldn't run a 100-yard dash. So I would say calm the body, calm the room. What you put in is what you're going to get out. And I tell you, the people that are so anxious that I deal with, even after they're retired, they still dream of work, being late for work. And they've been retired 20 years, some 30 years. And if you think about that, think of all that anxiety that we're pouring in on ourselves. So why add to it? Why heap it? So when you go to bed, don't pile on yourself. Make it your sanctuary. So that and foods, we're not going to drink. Some people might drink a pot of coffee and go to bed. But for the majority of us, chill out on the late night food. Chill out on the stimulants. Just watch your food, watch your drink. Get in a routine. Make it your sanctuary. And treat yourself. And you know what, guys? Be kind to yourself. If I was going to leave one thing to you on sleep hygiene, just be kind to yourself when you go to bed. Try to think some happy thoughts and what you did for other people, and that you're a good person. And try to think happy thoughts. Because what you think, I think, is what you'll dream, what you believe. So sorry to run on. Is that too crazy?
No, that's beautiful. I think that's a wonderful, especially for caregivers. Yes. Yeah, that's a wonderful.
You know what, guys? We could take all of our, you caregivers out there, you could take all the stressors of the day, right, into your body. And what your body's going to do is going to stay hypervigilant, okay? Because your body doesn't know the difference between that you cared for a sick one, or if you cared for a mountain, or what do you call it? Where those lions back in the day, not a mountain lion, but the lions that roared back in the caveman days, they call it saber-tooth. When your body's under stress, it doesn't know if it's the caveman mentality or if it's something you dealt with a small cat today. Your body just knows stress. Okay, so if you take that stress into your body, the body still thinks, if you believe, evolution, or however you believe, your body just knows danger, 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 and all it knows then is go to the sympathetic nervous system. And when it goes to the sympathetic nervous system, what does that do? Alert, alert, alert. It doesn't know saber-toothed tiger from the dog you took care of. All it knows is, I had a bad day, I'm in danger. And what does it do? You can't get deep into sleep. You will sleep with one eye open, like the saying goes. Yeah. And that's how a lot of animals live. You don't want to live in microsleeps. We're not built for microsleeps. Like if you take pictures of birds, or you watch birds, or you watch animals, they will sleep with one eye open. And that's actually the truth. They have semi-hemispheric sleep. And that's because they are not predators, they're the prey. So let's not get in our thing of being a prey. Okay, we're sleeping with one eye open. We're lucky. We're very lucky that we're safe and we're on top of the food chain, for the most part, that we can close both eyes. Because if you have to sleep with one eye open, you get micro sleeps like fish, sharks, birds. I like the photography, so I have a picture of a bird sleeping with one eye open. Birds will also sleep with the one in the front and the one in the back will be awake while the two in the middle are trying to sleep. So basically, what I'm trying to say, and tie this guy in the animal world, guy in the human world, however we evolved, is the body does not know the difference when it's in fear of the job, something that happened at work. It still thinks of back in the day. It's I want to live. It's that basic. I want to live. So it will secrete hormones at night too much, and you'll be rocking and rolling all night. So treat yourself kindly and try to reduce the negative thoughts, and hopefully that will reduce the cortisol and the adrenaline in your body, and you'll go to the parasympathetic. Your body will allow itself to reach homeostasis and go to the parasympathetic nervous system and allow you to relax and do the right stuff. But if you want to stay hypervigilant all night, I would not recommend it for your heart, for your body, for your mind. Sorry for that run on. I just got real passionate.
I love the passion. Kindly. And you bring up something, I'm going to kind of work backwards here. I know over the years, and especially for, I think, our demographic, where there's a lot of women who, I don't know, somehow, I think it was COVID, but, there's true crime podcasts and stuff like that. But I used to watch a lot of like SVU and different shows in my 20s that were definitely negatively impacting my sleep. But it took me a long time to realize that. And now, because I've done so much work to recognize the mind-body connection, I can feel the tension in my body and almost feel this flood of hormones, the adrenaline and cortisol, that increase my muscle tension and increase my heart rate and my breath rate when watching thriller, suspense, psychological thrillers or suspense, or gosh forbid Neil knows that I no longer watch, even if they are intriguing, I no longer watch like serial killer shows, these SVUs where it's like really cruel things that again, that emotional signature for me is very, very tangible. And so it's just it's a hard rule for me. But because I'm like you and I do know myself, most of the time, there are times where I can fall asleep with nothing, but there are times where, again, it's like, who do I need to hear right now? Do I need to hear Wayne Dyer's
Sure.
voice? Do I want to hear Les Brown's voice? I don't watch, like, I don't listen to motivational stuff, but maybe it's laughter. Oftentimes for me, if I'm going to watch something,
I like the laughter approach.
Yeah,
I do
90%
like
of the
that.
time it's the sitcoms because I want that dopamine. I need that laughter. I want to, but again, it's also tapping into my need to feel safe and secure and belonging.
I think
And
that's all. I think
get
that's
that.
all us humans want.
Yeah.
Is
And
a little bit of
so,
safety on this rock that we're trying to understand that we live on.
and you
Very
talk
well.
to that, point,
Yeah.
and I just read something about how, like, if you're co-sleeping with your kiddos, it is safer for the kiddo to co-sleep with mom than for dad because of the biological connection and because we are wired to wake up easier. And so I think, especially for the new parents or the moms who baby monitor or no baby monitor or co-sleeping or however you're sleeping, despite the fact that at the heart of it, before we had Gavin, Neil and I were still two different sleepers, right? The mouse fart and then the deep sleep with the bombs going off. That's how we are. But then even when we had Gavin, it's still present and maybe even a little heightened to where Gavin could be outwardly crying. Neil doesn't wake up. Whereas if Gavin rolls over, I'm waking up. But
good point.
And I'll caveat that with to say there were some times, especially in the early days, when progesterone was really high, that I slept through certain things with Gavin.
Sure.
Because progesterone induces sleep. So I actually slept really well in the early days because progesterone was high. And I remember feeling this drop off after I stopped breastfeeding and stuff, where my sleep was less, it was just harder for me. So I think that's
so many
fascinating.
And caregivers.
And so with that, I want to ask you, what is the most fascinating thing about sleep, or for you, like, what's the most fascinating, or since you've had over, nearly 3,500 patients, like, what's the most fascinating thing that stands out for you? Is there anything about sleep or about, your patients?
Beautiful question. May I go back just a second and touch on for the mothers out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the parents. And it could be with fathers too. But what I've noticed, you brought up some great points. You've I'm gonna hire you and I'll retire. Is that it is tough, and I can't speak for mothers, but I've talked to enough mothers, grandmothers, and I'm not a doctor, but what I've seen is once somebody, I don't care if you adopt or if you have your own children, I swear, for the most part, ladies are more attuned to their children, more so than guys. And I'm not saying anything. I do see the guy. I became more hypervigilant. I was checking our son for breathing. I hold a mirror up or put my head down, because here we have this new human that we have to take care of for our whole lives. And I didn't sleep as well. So hats off to the fathers, but seriously, hats off to the mothers, because there is some type of biological thing. Again, not a PhD here.
And, it was different for me when we had Braden, who's my bonus kid, versus when we had Gavin, who was the bio. It was very different for me.
Could you tell the difference? Okay, with the bio, and this all with all children, you are their guard. You are their guard. You are their guard. You are their guard.
Like Braden.
They are the prey still.
Braden's my bonus kid, but when he was 3-4 years old, or even now he's 11, that bro walks down the stairs, and as he's walking down the stairs, I will tap Neil, because when he's walking down the stairs, he wants Neil and not me, because that's his dad. But I will tap Neil because Neil's not going to wake up unless he's like standing beside him, doing like the creeper vibe. But even then, it's like until, and so, but again, I think that's probably awareness, that hypervigilance, whether it's Braden or whether it's the dogs, like the dogs or the cats, or something's amiss in the house. And again, the mouse farts, and I'm like, there's something here. Yeah.
No, you said it perfectly. It's built into us as humans to protect the young remember, they're the prey. Our bodies are
Mhm.
still in this animal world. Our brains are still animalistic,
So
even though we have the new cerebellum. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
if
The
we're looking
neocortex,
at,
excuse me.
oh yeah, like if we're looking at complex sleep hygiene, I would say, and again, like to your correlation of stress is stress. Anyone who is a part of GM knows that I use that exact analogy of the saber-toothed tiger a lot in my presentations.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I mean,
100%.
the body doesn't know. The body just wants to live.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That means that safety is safety.
Mhm.
So safety is safety. So that what I'm saying is, whatever you feel insecure or unsafe about, whether it is your physical safety, your financial insecurity, your kid's safety, or your dog, or whatever, again, know thyself. Start to work with yourself and figure out what those things are. But beyond whatever those things are, regardless of what those things are, you're broke, your kid doesn't sleep through the night, your dog's sick, regardless of what those things are, figure out things that make you do feel safe, that make you do feel secure.
I like that.
And then
I'm going to use that with talking to people before they go to bed.
Focus on that. I feel safe because I have clothing. I feel safe because I have food. I feel safe because my mom is still alive. I feel safe because I have a good relationship with my brother and I know he would always have my back. I feel safe because I've got Charlie in my life. And if shit really started to go down, Charlie would have my back. Like, I have people, like, figure out something. It could be anything. I feel safe because I have paper. Like, whatever, I have a vehicle that's going to get me to work tomorrow. Figure out something that you feel safe around. Something that's going to tell your brain and your body that you are secure, you are safe, while still figuring out the other stuff. If you are straight up broke, yeah, you got to solve that problem. And do that work during the day when it's prioritized. Do not try to be figuring out that stuff at 12 o'clock at night. And trust yourself. Trust yourself. Trust yourself and tell yourself, Renee, you're going to have time on Tuesday at 3 p.m. to figure this out. Now is not the time. Right now, you've got blankets, you've got bedding, you've got, your dog is here, whatever it is, right? Like, you just find, and if you tap into like the senses, the grounding techniques, the mindfulness of disassociating a little bit into the witness stance, and then tapping into, you feel, and this will probably come up on some of your guided meditations, but you feel the blankets on your skin. You feel the weight of your body on your pillows. Sorry. Yeah, you start to do maybe some kinesthetics where, you tighten and relax your muscles. If you tap into different, I think I even have some meditations on Get Motivated University where it's like, okay, now we're going to recognize our eyebrows. We're going to let the eyebrows relax, and then we're just going to move down to the body and let the tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. You let your neck relax, and you can start to feel these different increments where I did not realize there was so much tension in my legs or my knees or my hip. Like, you're holding it, and then you relax and you're like, oh, that's totally different. So there's different ways as you get more into the complex sleep hygiene where you implement different practices that would further support your sleep. And again, start sending these signals of we're safe, we're secure, we're doing.
You're good.
So, okay, I want to give you a chance to kind of.
I tell people, I always try to tell people they're safe at my place. It's locked down tight, and I know I'm a stranger to them. And it's bizarre to go to. First of all, guys, sleep studies don't hurt. We're so lucky to live. I'm going to go on a little dive here.
I want to talk about that.
We're so lucky to live in a country. Well, we're so lucky to live in a country where we have a test for sleep, where most of the world's fighting to get from building A to B for safety, or to find water, to find a place to sleep. We have a test for sleep. So for all you guys out there who think the sleep tests are the worst, this is my thing to you, and I do it with all due respect, is we're so fortunate to have in most countries, westernized countries, easternized countries, or just countries that can afford to do it. We're so fortunate to have a test for your sleep. It's unheard of in a lot of other places. They would not know what you're talking about. You test your sleep. So we're so fortunate. But I guess where I'm going with that, sorry to get off on that, but I tell people they're safe. The place is locked down. Doors are locked. Yes, I'm a stranger to you,
Yes.
but I'm going to take care of you like my wife and child, my late mother and father. The people start to relax a little bit for the most part. Most of them do. I try to tell them to think of a happy thought, to think of, they go, how am I going to sleep with all these wires on me? And it is strange, and I know the technology will get better and this will be looked on as something, strange that we had wires over people and why isn't it Bluetooth? We're getting closer. But that to think of a happy thought. And when I'm sleeping, sometimes when my mind's racing too much because I've worked all night or I'm worried about my son or my wife or just things I've done in the past, I can't shut it off. I do this trick where I'll touch the tip of my nose. This sounds so weird, guys. I'll touch the tip of my nose, okay, while I'm sleeping. And I've seen it in kids and I've seen it in other people who rub their ear, suck their thumb. Some people will rock, okay? They're called self-soothers, okay?
Yes.
And it's a way of soothing ourselves when somebody else can't be there with us, right? We have our favorite pillow, our favorite blanket. I love weighted blankets, kudos to whoever those. I love it. I feel secure. But the reason I touch my nose, this is maybe more sophisticated, like sleep hygiene, like you're really going off the hook, and congratulations for all the work you've done on that. But mine is just simple in terms of touching my nose. And what it tells me, guys, is to focus on what's present. Don't let your mind, I have a bad habit of, and I've always had, of being too far in front of myself, being over the tips of my skis. And I'll touch my nose at night, just tap it a little bit, just say, Chuck, think about what's in just you right here. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will solve itself. You can't worry about the past. We've all been through those self-talks, but just try to Chuck, relax. Enjoy the moment you're here. You're going to slip off into a beautiful sleep. Maybe tonight you'll dream of something that's beautiful that, I try to think of maybe a beautiful place I've been or beautiful memories with my family.
Yes.
And I hope to dream about that stuff. So I think of it as a reset button, touching your nose maybe and saying, hey, don't be so far out in front or in back. So that's how I ground myself.
Mindfulness. Yeah. It's that state of presence.
Thank you.
I love that. And it's both things, right? It's the cognitive and then the physical act of, and there's might be, besides the grounding in that area is, we have some acupressure points, like your third eye that releases between your eyebrows, like that can be, relieve anxiety. And then it's sort of become this mantra, this practice for you of mindfulness to bring you into the present moment. I do that as well. Like it's Tuesday, it's, whatever, June, something, like just to kind of, like bring yourself into the present. And I love that. I love that practice. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh my gosh. I've had
sleep
so many good memories of, it's an honor to take care of people. Number one, to have people trust you, because sickness, as we said, doesn't take a break. It just, because you're asleep, your body doesn't know if it's at the hospital, if it's at the home or at the sleep thing. So thank you for trusting us to watch your sleep, so to speak, to watch your health, because your body does go through changes at night. Not changes, but your body's systems are acting differently. Your heart rate increases or oxygen decreases, things of that nature. So thank you for letting us watch your vitals. And that's what we're basically trying to do is, are you changing? Is your body going too far up or down the norm, breaking that homeostasis, and we report back to the doctors trying to think of what's causing it. So we do differential diagnosis where we try to figure out what it is by what it isn't. So that's why you're put through a lot of tests. Doctors are running you through the test. Is we're trying to see if your body, for a sleep test, the body's vitals change during the night. Because we don't know. People go, I don't know what I did. I was asleep. I thought I slept well. They don't
Right.
know. And I've watched people that I'm sitting on the end of my chair going, please breathe, it'll be 30 seconds. Their heart's still racing. So don't, a lot of people get confused and they get their AHI index, their apnea, hypopnea index. Basically, guys, whether you're breathing shallow or not. So your heart's still moving. Your heart's not stopping 50 times an hour or 30 times. People go, my heart stopped. I'm not making fun. I'm just clarifying. It's your breathing. Your breathing becomes shallow, and they make an index per hour. Okay. Well, some of these people don't know that when they have severe apnea, some of these apnea is just a Greek word for little to no breathing. Pnea, where we get pneumonia, and then A in front means without. So hypopnea, hypopneas are shallow breathing. Apneas are like cessation of breathing. You're not dying. It's just that you're very shallow to little breathing. Let's say that. Well, people don't know it. They'll sleep the whole night and say, I slept well, and we'll watch them, and their vitals will be all over the boards. And that's what we give to the doctors. And then doctors talk to you guys about it, or how deep of a sleep, and they'll say, Renee, you hardly had any deep sleep. You know, something on your mind. You might not have sleep disordered breathing, we call it, for the hypopneas and apneas. But they'll say, you know, what's up? You know, and you might have to, you know,
That's
talk about, different things.
That's one thing I would say. I do not have an iWatch or a Fitbit or anything like that. I'm not a fan of keeping that stuff on my body. I'm pretty disconnected from my iPhone. But if I were to ever, like, the most intriguing thing to me when that came out was the ability to at least to some degree track your sleep. And I think for people, again, if you want to tap into certain things to use, that could be something like before you go for like a sleep study, is to just get some like at home information if it's semi accurate, right? Just again, pointing you in a direction of like, what's the quality of your sleep? And is this something I need to talk to my doctor about, or my medical team or whatever? So,
no, I'll tell you the one thing that helps. Oh my gosh, if you don't have a bed partner, I'll tell you the bed partners save the lives.
Right.
Whether it's the hypervigilance or whether it's the sleep disordered breathing, more people. I tell guys who didn't want to come in, and we're not allowed to say anything really.
Sure.
But I will. The guys that I feel like I can talk to, I'll say, you go buy your wife some flowers, or you go buy. She just saved your life. And they'll go, are you kidding me? Was it that bad? And I'll kind of roll my eyes, and I can't go far because I'm not supposed to diagnose or say anything. But the best technology, the bed partner. Okay, the bed partner, they save lives. Second would be, yes, the equipment's getting better, but it's not there yet. So yes, use it as an auxiliary, but get a sleep test. I wish I could see more of you guys earlier in your lives than when you're 60s, 70s, and 80s. Please, please, please. People say, "Oh, I'm not overweight," or "I'm not old." No, guys.
Could you use a sleep test as like a preventative medicine? Could you?
Thank you.
You said you've got a small like a small trachea?
Yeah, I got a small trach. Other people have what they call is Malampati. It's a Malampati. I think it's after a doctor or the person who designed this idea. They look down your throat. They look into your mouth. Excuse me, and see how wide that opening is with where the uvula is, guys, and the tongue.
Sure.
And that opening going down from the heart to the soft palate, and your adenoids and tonsils, they'll give you a score. I think it's 1 to 4. I think it's 1 to 4. Well, what happens is we're all built differently. You could be the skinniest person in the world, but if you have a high score where your soft palate is hanging down,
like a bulldog,
most likely going to have some. The tongue, guys, we only see about a third of our tongue. It's a big muscle. So what happens is we become atonic. Again, without, okay? So without tone, we lose the tone in our neck area, and it rolls back, the tongue rolls back and blocks it. So you could be, I've had people, I'm not kidding you, a buck soaking wet, 100, 120 soaking wet. male, female, I don't care what age, and they could have a high apnea hypopnea index, high sleep disordered breathing, present a lot, if you want to, so to speak, because just the way they're built. So I didn't mean to get off on that.
So that could be a complex
please come
thing.
see me before you're 60 and 70. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Once we find out heart things, guys. God,
so anybody could
heart things. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Like just go to the doctor or say, hey, I'm interested in this.
I found out I had a heart problem, Renee, on my sleep test.
Okay.
It saved my life. I didn't know. I knew I was an anxious kid, but when I had my sleep test, my buddies, we worked on ourselves because, we were students and stuff like that, working in the profession. And they looked at me with big eyes, and I thought, okay, guys, I know I snore. And they said, no, your heart's messed up. Because we run an EKG for 6 to 8 hours on you.
That's what.
When you go for the EKG for the doctor, they basically, nothing against the doctors or the EKG people at all. This is just a view or something I've seen or whatever. You know how they put on like 10 of them, a 10 lead?
Yeah.
And then as soon as they put them on, they're taking them off, and you're like, did you get to see what you wanted to see? Is it over yet? Well, we get to watch you for 6 to 8 hours and watch your heart. And what they found with my heart was I was presenting PVCs, guys, or just extra heartbeats. We won't get too technical, but I was throwing PVCs. I was giving out PVCs like
I've got some. Oh yeah, I think that
I mean, and it makes you feel anxious.
Yes.
And sometimes people are sometimes taking anxiety medicine, like myself, but they realized that, hey, they gave me a beta blocker to say, we're going to help you with your anxiety because you're an anxious guy. But part of your anxiety is from your heart throwing PVCs. And we're telling the heart and the adrenal glands, hey, calm down a little bit. It changed my life. So getting back to I know I'm running on, but getting back to the preventative medicine, please come see us before, because we'll look at we won't look inside your heart, but we'll watch your heart rhythm longer than anybody does. We'll watch and see if how deep of a sleep you're going into, because if you're hypervigilant, hey, we got to calm the mind down. And they have neuropsychologists and psychologists that can help maybe calm or teach you or therapists how to calm the mind a little bit. Sometimes they're very easy fixes. And of course, the sleep disordered breathing. But sometimes I hate to say this, guys, sometimes the damage is done before you get to me in your later years. And here's why. And I'm going to bring up a study, and I'm not going to put it in concrete. But what we're seeing is the sleep disordered breathing and the fragmented sleep from worrying too much or from the not breathing well enough. We believe, and I use this very generally, in some studies, I just say some studies believe around the world that the plaque that builds up due to the brain not being able to clean itself, the house cleaning we talked about during REM, okay, and maybe deep sleep. Let's just say sleep in general. The plaque builds up like the plaque on our teeth around the myelin sheath, so you get the beta amyloid plaque and stuff. So if we can stop maybe what they think there might be a correlation between sleep and maybe, I want to say dementia, I'm not going to make that strong a thing, but building up a plaque on the brain is becoming stronger and stronger. So let's get the breathing figured out and and calming of the mind figured out. And I think we'll live, this is just me, I think we'll live a longer, it might not be a long life. I don't want to predict anything like that, but I think we'll have our minds a healthier life. Yeah. A healthier life for longer. Well said.
That's
we
really
are
great.
Seeing studies where plaque is building up. Oh God!
Okay.
Sorry, guys. One thing. This is one study, and it was over in England. Okay, I'm pretty sure England or one of the Ivy League schools here. Might be Cambridge, might be Oxford over in England if it is. But real quick, they did an MRI of the brain, and they showed the brain supposedly rinsing itself at night. Yes, rinsing itself at night. And so what I gained from it and talked to other doctors about it was, if you notice the body, the lymph nodes stop right about top of the neck. You know how the doctors will reach for your lymph nodes and see if they're hard up by your jaw when you're sick? We don't have any lymph nodes in our brain, all right? They stop right about the top of the jawline, all right? they say, well, how does the brain clean itself? We never kind of figured out how the brain actually cleans itself. We hear about defragmenting, cleaning, house pruning, tree pruning, but they say that the brain rinses itself at night of this debris, okay? And then with the cerebral spinal fluid, it gives it a rinse, and then it goes down, through the ventricles into our body, and then down to the lymph nodes and out. But if we prevent it from getting washed, the brain getting rinsed, we build up the plaque. So let's let's have a longer, healthier life, or a healthier life in general. I don't know how to say that, but you know what I mean.
By helping the brain rinse itself by getting good quality sleep, but then also, and actually on that note, and we're wrapping up here, you guys, but
Sure.
I was just listening to Tony Robbins, and it's funny because this is the second time I've heard this week, because there was another teacher an educator that I was listening to. I don't know her role, but she talks a lot about physiology and how to hack it. But Tony Robbins was also talking about it, and on the Tim Ferriss podcast, I think this is an old podcast I was re-listening to, but two of my favorite people, and they for 1 to 10 minutes in the morning, bouncing on like a health bounce, very lightly bouncing on a small trampoline. Like Tony Robb, like he'll travel with it because it's so important. And this is news. This is sort of news to me. Not something I've implemented yet, but I'm going to. Is with the sole purpose of activating and flushing the lymphatic system. And when you do that in the morning, you prime it to function optimally for the entire day.
Whoa.
And it improves your immuno responses as well as other things. And so this is, again, just my opinion, but you're saying that if we're rinsing that and it's going probably into the lymphatic system, if we don't then flush the lymphatic system, it's going to sit. And so we know that
be a backup, like a
and then we know that, when the lymphatic system isn't functioning optimally, then it's just this cascade of things that go wrong, especially at a chronic state, like when we're doing this chronically versus then we get into other, like you said, the damage is done. We're getting into certain conditions or diseases that
it's harder to undo. It's like not brushing your teeth forever and wonder why you have plaque or tartar buildup.
Exactly.
Same thing with your brain.
And then the heart disease that comes with it. And everyone who's listening to this podcast knows that correlation. So we're just trying to theorizing, I guess, making our own connections. But I think that's really important for people to do. And that's how, discoveries are made and stuff. But quick question, if we can make it a quick question.
Sure, I know. I'm so sorry, guys.
No,
I'm passionate about what I do.
And this is why. Full moons.
Oh.
As a daytime worker, let me give you As a daytime worker, I know how full moons affect my patients and my colleagues and my clients. I also know how full moons affect me. I would do my best to not work full moons, like if I could. So
you're bad.
I know. But there
was something to do with the full of the moon.
I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, y'all. I've worked plenty of full moons. It's just a couple here and there. Like I said, once this was within the past 10 years, I kind of figured this out. Probably 5 years, even. No, 10 years for sure. Time passes. But anyways, so is it okay? You're laughing. You don't have to give a long explanation, but maybe just say yes or no.
I don't have scientific proof of that, but I
yes
agree
or
with
no,
you and everybody else.
It's
Your
a
palms
difference
sweat when you see the moon.
It's
when
a
I go out to my car at night, they are, and I don't know why, and I'm sure there's some study or there's some myths or whatever, but I am like everybody else in your viewing audience and yourself. When you go out to your car, especially during the winter months when the moon, it's darker when you go to work.
Oh yeah,
I see a full moon. Hell, my hands are sweating now. My armpits are sweating because you don't know what's going to happen. You brace for it. And I swear there are times where there's 2 full moons. I thought I was on a Twilight Zone show. But anyway,
Okay.
if I could just give you my favorite things that kind of are the neatest things I've seen in sleep. I know you've asked me this, and I'm sorry I've went off on tangents. I would say that one is seeing the effects of CPAP or BiPAP, the air treatments we give you, the natural air treatments we give you through the mask. And yes, the masks are getting better, guys, and they're smaller. Is watching how the body changes in one night from when you get treatment. Sometimes we do a split study. We do watch you for half the night and then give you treatment. Watching the body flip in terms of your heart rate get better. Sometimes your rhythm get better. I've seen it go from irregular sinus rhythm to a normal sinus rhythm with the treatment of air. Just watching your body just say thank you, and you go into a deeper sleep or start going into REM because you're getting that air. That brain, guys, 3 pounds out of your whole body weight wants 25% of your oxygen intake. And when it doesn't get its quarter, it's going to make everybody else suffer. It's going to survive. So watching the brain get more air and watching the body flip in one night, awesome. Number 2 would be just watching people dream and thinking, what are they dreaming? Just watching the screens in their eyes, and you're thinking, oh my God, this person's seeing beautiful things, or hopefully not scary things. But the power of dreaming, I think we're going to learn more about dreaming and how we can help ourselves better and like you said, be more mindful and maybe help ourselves forget some bad stuff or deal with some of the traumas in our life through, dreaming. And there's ways of that. And then 3 would be REM behavior disorders and things that you see when the body is not being held atonic on the bed. The body's not being held so you don't act out your dreams. Sometimes the body will not hold itself paralyzed, semi-paralyzed, and people will act out their dreams more so than just, throwing an arm or a leg, but talking, singing, trying to get up and, thinking they're in their dreams instead of just restfully, laying there and maybe just moving a little bit. When you get REM behavior disorder, guys, you're acting out your dreams. And that's what your creator, whoever you believe made you, wants to save you from hurting yourself in your dreams. These people will act out their dreams because they're not paralyzed enough. And that has to do with neurotransmitters and stuff like that. So I'd say those are my top 3.
I think that's so cool. I think that's really, really cool. And I actually Googled what are the most Googled questions as it relates to sleep. And that was one of them. It was lower on the list. Sleep apnea was the top one. Insomnia.
Sleep paralysis is another one that's cool.
But yeah, I think that's really
neat. You don't get to see that a lot.
Yeah, and we didn't get into, maybe it's a part 2 where we kind of talk about conditions and stuff like that. But I love that you at least touched on those conditions. I know for me, RLS, restless leg syndrome, and to some degree, the kicking.
I call one man running man.
Yeah.
One guy ran so much, Renee, that I thought he was going to go out of the bed, and he doesn't remember. They don't remember a lot of it, but that's something that can disturb your sleep so much. Guys, take care of the legs. And sometimes the sleep doctors don't deal enough with the legs, okay? Because they're pulmonologists, okay? A lot of these people are pulmonologists. Well, they don't deal as much. They might prescribe the medicine, but they might leave it up to your primary, or people will take mustard or pickle juice, whatever. Control the legs. Because you're on your legs the whole day at your vet place, at your caregiver's place, whatever you're doing. We were pounding the concrete since we're a toddler till now. And those legs sometimes want to stretch out, move, don't have enough neurotransmitters, don't have enough vitamins, minerals. And I'm telling you, some of these people could be an NFL field goal kicker the way they kick. And they won't remember it.
Right.
So please take care of the legs yourselves if you have to. Because sometimes the sleep doctors will not take care of the leg issues. I'm sorry, because that's not their domain if you're a pulmonologist.
That's really no, I appreciate that very much, and that's something that I advocate for, and I've gotten some feedback on that, to just at least one sort of negative feedback on it, but is advocating for yourself especially in our medical system, but you have to advocate for yourself because it is a fragmented approach. and you're the only one who knows all of the things. Like your different specialist doctors are not talking to each other. And I can promise you, you guys know, if you're not looking through the entire patient's case file every time you go into it. And so, and you've got hundreds of patients, you might see 30 in a day, but you've got hundreds or thousands of patients that you're seeing throughout the year. Like, come on, guys, like, you have to advocate for yourself, and you do have to take some personal responsibility.
That's a good point, Renee.
So I appreciate you.
The start of every show.
But let me
start of every show, Renee. Advocate for yourself. Advocate for yourself. Advocate for yourself.
And there are some things that are simple fixes that don't require a doctor, right? So if we're looking at the legs or different things, so those two different.
Can we deal with pain real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry, and I know this could be time for another show, but there's a lot of people out there with pain, with stuff we've had with COVID, which we'll see probably 5 or 10 years from now, long studies. But the fibromyalgia,
yes,
a lot of people deal with, the breathlessness of maybe long-term COVID. I think our body's got inflamed, whether you believe in it or not. COVID, I think, affected all of us somehow, okay, and inflamed. And a lot of people are suffering from pain, okay, more so. And I think COVID helped bring a lot of that stuff to surface. But where I want to get with this in pain is, know thyself, advocate for thyself. A lot of doctors will sometimes not believe in fibromyalgia and pain. Hey, I know when you're sleeping at night and they're saying, please don't put one sheet on me. Everything hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in it. I believe in it. Sometimes they can't put something on. They'll say, oh, it's an autoimmune thing. They put it in the generality of medicine.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is. But hey, if you hurt, you hurt. Okay.
Yeah.
But where I want to go with this is, and I believe you're hurting, but I want to go with this is please, and this is a safety thing, please don't self-soothe at night too much. Okay. I know we all might have a glass of wine after a long day.
You mean self-medicate?
Or with self-medicate. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Versus, self-medicate. The alcohol actually messes up the sleep. You're talking like overly medicating, using over-the-counter medication, stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I admit on the airwaves here that I've self-medicated. I'm sorry about the self-soothing. I self-medicated when I was going through some trauma in my life after deaths of my parents. And I'm on medication for anxiety. I was drinking wine, and I have obstructive sleep apnea. Please don't self-medicate too much. I know we all do. I know we all have something that we like at night before we go to bed to kind of calm us. But please, you can knock out your will to breathe. And that's the one thing that you hear a lot of stars, out in Hollywood or people around the world will self-medicate.
And
please, guys, it can happen to you too. Yeah, and we're all on a lot of pain medications now because of the things that we've been through in life and some of the things that have happened to us. But please watch yourselves, because if you take too much, your body will say, hey, in a nutshell, I like this, and since you're taking care of the stuff for me, I'll shut down some systems and just relax with you. That's when people die of heart attacks sometimes during their sleep, and mysteriously people say so-and-so passed away, due to sleep apnea. It usually affects your heart or your breathing shutting down. So please don't self-medicate too much. That's my one thing.
Yeah, the do's and don'ts. I appreciate that. That's a really smart thing to bring up. You're so intelligent to make that connection before we get off.
I almost did it to myself.
Yeah, and people do. And here's the other thing. Again, when we're talking to the advocacy and the doctors, one thing that I read, or it was a video, it was a TED Talk, fascinating TED Talk. If I could find it, I'll connect it, but I don't know that I'll be able to. But what has not been studied is the cocktail of medicines and their side effects. So every medicine might have its own FDA study, which has its laundry list of side effects. What doesn't get studied is the person who's on 17 medications. They might know one or two, don't take this and that. Again, everyone here is a medical professional. You guys know that there's some really obvious don't mix these two medications. But there are millions, tons of non-obvious medications that, especially when you're on a cocktail, it's not one or two, it's not the anxiety meds and the beta blocker. It's when, like, my mom, who was on a bazillion, I was on 7 pharmaceutical medications at one time, including my OTC medications. And then, like you said, the self-medicate, so like social drinking, smoking cigarettes, like there's no one studies that. No one, there's not funding, there's not people, and there's too many variations. Millions of people taking variations of meds. There's not a way to study that. So if you're on a cocktail of medications, and by that I mean more than 1 or 2, if you're on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 medications, if you are using supplements and you don't fully understand supplements, you don't fully understand supplements, or you don't fully understand how your supplements are interacting with your pharmaceutical medications, that could be a recipe for disaster. And then you tie in things like maybe the drinking. CBD is becoming more popular to manage chronic pain. And so being able to recognize these things, very, very smart to know that those things aren't studied, but that they need to be, and that the consequences of that can be detrimental to us. How many languages do you speak, Charlie?
Just 4. I just speak 4.
Just 4. Just 4.
Well,
okay. So
10 if
there
I
you
could get
go.
by in 10, 4. Okay.
There you go.
10, but 4.
10,
Okay.
4 fluently, 10 languages. 10 languages, you guys. I think that's there's not even a word for it. Phenomenal is an understatement. So 10 languages and 4 of them fluently. I have some fun questions. The first one is, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, great.
Rapid fire.
Okay. Greece.
Greece. Okay. Any particular spot in Greece?
There's an island in Greece where I grew up around some Greek friends, and they took me to the island, and I fell in love. So the island of Kefalonia, also pronounced Kefalonia. It was in a Nicolas Cage movie. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but anyway, it's an island off the coast of Greece.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna do some what would you rather questions. Would you rather be able to talk with animals or speak all foreign languages?
As much as I love languages, that's a good one. As much as I love languages, and I do, because I got to figure out what words mean. I love etymology. I'd rather speak to animals. I'd rather speak to animals because I want to know what they're thinking. God, I wonder what they're thinking of us crazy humans.
I love it, and I like it because you already have such a foundation for languages. Like, you can kind of get by with not knowing the languages. You've already got your skill set built up on that. Would you rather be Batman or Spider-Man?
Oh my gosh. Spider-Man, I'll tell you why, because he has those webs that can stick and make him fly. Batman really can't do as much. He tries, but I gotta go Spider-Man.
Okay. Would you rather have
fly.
Would you rather have a mullet or a rat tail, like a ponytail?
Oh my gosh. Can I say neither?
Mullet, business in front, party in the back. Or
party in the back. I'll go mullet. Now I'll tell you the reason why. The rat tail,
I'm gonna pee.
I can't do the rat tail, but I will wear a mullet for you.
I'm gonna pee my pants.
So it wouldn't be like hard going back into it.
A mullet? You had a mullet?
Yeah, you know why? Because I wore a mullet in the like 70s, 80s. Like you'd have your feathered hair on the sides, and then in the back, you let it kind of grow long. Like I don't know what I was thinking, but I at least have some experience with the mullet. But the rat tail, no way.
I have some experience with the mullet. That's hilarious. Would you rather your only mode of transportation be a donkey or a giraffe?
Oh, I'd say a giraffe because I've never ridden one. I've been on a donkey and a horse and a mule and all that. So I would pick something different because I like different.
Okay.
The artist
Okay.
in me. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's it, man.
Okay.
Oh my
That was one.
goodness.
I didn't expect that.
That's so funny. I know. It's just a fun little way that I remembered to end podcasts. Thank you so much for your time
Oh, you're welcome.
today.
Thank you for having me on. I hope I helped a little bit.
I am confident that you did. You definitely answered some of my questions. I think that the conversation naturally, I think we have such a really great rapport with each other, but it flowed into the questions that I had listed really organically. So we didn't have to pause and kind of jump tracks as much. Like they just kind of flowed really well together. So I appreciate that. But that's not surprising to me.
I'm sorry,
I do want to show you.
I'm very passionate about sleep.
Look at my post-it. Remember, I told you what my words of the year were yesterday. So so I rewrote this post-it a couple times, but it's content and surrender. Content and surrender being like next to each other, sort of. But we both talked yesterday when we hung out, actually, about our words for the year, and they were contentment. So I think
mine was contentment.
Yeah. And I told him mine was as well, but that was just sort of proof that that it was, because I had it on a post-it on my office wall, and so I just showed that to Charlie. But pick a word for the year, you guys, and let it be your North Star, at least for this year, and a reminder of where to go. So if you've stuck with us for this entire time, I appreciate you guys all listening. And if you've paused it and came back to it, that's cool too. I know it was a long one, but I think it's a really informative and entertaining discussion on sleep. And I knew that there's no one better out there to have this discussion than CP Oliver. So yes, thank you so much.
I just want to take my hat off to you. You are knowledgeable, young lady. I'm going to retire today and give you the keys to the place tomorrow. You are sleep extraordinaire.
I'm not trained in the
professor.
the watching of the we do EKG, or the monitoring of our patients under anesthesia. And the more and more back in the day, it was just like, look at them, make sure they're cool. It got more advanced. Then it was like, okay, we're checking vitals, and then it got more advanced. And now we're doing the EKG leads, and we're having to track heart waves and, kind of do some medical interventions. And that shit gives me anxiety. It always has. I think it always will. It's just not something my brain. I would rather get deep into the research that I have. So let me ask you this before we go.
Yeah, sure.
Any books that you recommend on sleep or otherwise?
No, I'll tell you. If you want to kind of learn how, and this is some boring stuff. We usually do technical stuff. William Dement, Dement, is like the father of sleep medicine in the United States. William Dement. And he's written many books. So if you're looking for a more scientific way, it's not too much into statistics and boring, manual stuff, but he and some other ladies and gentlemen were the pioneers in sleep, and were the ones to figure out what rapid eye movement was, and to start putting leads on people more. They were the early pioneers. So William Dement's books are good. But the Huffington one I was going to mention today, so good job. Cool. The ones that I don't care for are ones that are just full of fluff. I kind of like meat and potatoes.
And by that you mean scientific?
Yeah, scientific, but yet not too scientific where it bores you. I don't like that, okay, because I think you should be able to make things understandable for everybody, okay?
Okay.
But ones that don't have a lot of proof and so you say non-scientific, but what I mean is, I want stuff that helps people today. The stuff that helps people.
Okay.
Practical, that's the thing. So a little bit of science, a little bit of practicality, because we have to have some science in this world, but yet we have to be practical. So I kind of like something kind of right in the middle, a sweet spot. I don't like too scientific where it bores you and you want to just jump out the window. And I don't want something that's a bunch of fluff that has no scientific basis that they, say is.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that's
Cool.
just me.
I like it. All
Okay.
right. Well, enjoy your Friday.
Thank you. You the same. And everybody, thank you for listening, and thank you for having me on.
This is fantastic. People probably could tell from our voices, like the early on, we just woke up. This is an early podcast for us. And then we got a little, we're riled up. We're ready for the day. So it's all
Be kind
good.
to yourselves, guys out there. If that's one thing, be kind to yourself, because your body will follow suit.
I love it.
Just like if you treat somebody nicely, you're going to get a better, most likely, you're going to get a better outcome, right?
Yeah.
So treat your body the same way. Treat your sleep the same way. And hope you have better outcomes.
Number one takeaway. Okay. I like it.
You're the best. All right. Peace to all of you guys. Okay.
Lovely.
Right.
Bye.
Peace to peace.